The Russian war has become a catalyst for the depletion of all Federation's resources. In every sector, production or domestic, Russians are suffering losses. Huge injections into the military-industrial complex of Russia have overheated the economy, and the 14 packages of sanctions that Europe has imposed on Russia have become a powerful blow.
At the end of the year, it will turn out that realistic growth is not 3% per annum, but 0.2% per annum. Inflation is from 8 to 10% increase in consumer prices. All this will most likely lead to stagflation, because at the same time inflationary processes are unfolding and the economy is moving towards stagnation.
Russians are already feeling how their wallets are being emptied. In July, food prices rose by 0.3%, the Federal State Statistics Service reported. Since the beginning of the year, food prices have increased by 4%. These figures do not take into account the dynamics of alcohol prices. If we talk about the areas in which Russians put considerable sums, then according to the agency publication, over the past year, the most expensive were medical services. General blood tests alone have increased in price by 485%. Of the food products, bananas have increased in price the most, by 38.8%. The real estate prices have grown by 29%. Taxi fares and mobile services may also become unaffordable for Russians.
This will become an additional burden for Russians. Prices for many products and services have already increased over the past year. Follows from the agency's analysis. Some medical services have increased in price by hundreds of percent. Prices for food products, tomatoes 35.6%, cucumbers 27.5%, potatoes 24.2%, rice 14.8%. Rent and travel have also increased from the publication by agency on Telegram.
Russians have no reason for optimism. The last major foreign bank in Russia is closing the withdrawal of currency abroad for Russians. From September the 2nd, residents of the Federation will not be able to make outgoing transfers in currency for individual clients. Corporate lending will also not be available. The restriction was introduced in connection with the order of the European Central Bank.
According to a representative of one of the banks, due to the requirements of the European Central Bank, other of its products may also be closed, and if the management does not have time to comply with the regulator's instructions, then the credit institution in Russia is threatened with a couple cessation of operations. The deadline for processing foreign currency transfers is 16 Moscow time on August 30th. After that, the bank will stop accepting applications from clients, from an article by the publication of the Moscow Times.
To counter the risks of stagflation, a situation when economic growth rates are falling while unemployment and inflation are growing, in July the central bank raised the key interest rate by 200 basis points to 18%, which is the highest figure in the last 2.5 years.
Everything is at stake. The well-being of Russia's national welfare fund, which is almost depleted. Out of 15 trillion in liquid assets, less than 5 remain, and by the end of this year about 3 trillion rubles will remain. That is, the National Welfare Fund has been reduced fivefold. The assets that remained in the West have been lost.
Unemployment is growing in Russia due to the demographic crisis. The Federation is currently short of workers due to the mass deaths of Russian citizens in the war against Ukraine and the outflow of migrants. This is also a significant blow to the country's economy. Enterprises in Russia are currently short of more than 2 million workers. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.